Hello, my name is Reverend Paul, and welcome to this first Cosmic GED AI book club. I created this book club so that you can experience a larger expanse of knowledge than you normally would in a much more rapid amount of time. And there's no better example of this than the first book that we're going to delve into here, which is Maria Valtorta's The Poem of the Man God. I was a priest in a Christian mystical order for a number of years, and this was the primary text that our spiritual order used. And what's beautiful about it is that it is recently translated into English. I think it was 1989 that my Christian mystical teacher and mentor, Father Peter Bowes, was first introduced to it. He was at the guy who wrote the book, Healing the Shame That Binds You, Bradshaw. He was at that, and he was talking to him about some aspects of psychotherapy. Father Peter Bowes was a psychotherapist. And they got talking about the Poem of the Man God, and Bradshaw said, I think you'd really like this. And Father Peter Bowes took that to heart and was probably one of the first people in the English language to explore the Poem of the Man God so deeply. He was my teacher for years, and many of our conversations revolved around this book, especially the ones that related to ethics or to moral teachings. And anyone who's a fan of using the Bible as a teaching tool will love the Poem of the Man God, because there is a concordance that comes along with the Poem of the Man God, and it is, I should say, many volumes. When I read it, it was 5 volumes. I think now they have over 13 volumes. Father Peter Bowes reads the audiobook in Audible of the entire thing. So one of the things about art is you are trying to connect with the feeling behind the thing that you are experiencing. So there's the artifact, which is like more or less the medium that's transmitting it to you. But many times, if it's good art, there is an eternal message behind it that somehow exists outside of the artifact. And it's almost like the artifact is like an antenna that just kind of grounds it for you. I think you can say that about some music. I think you can say it about poetry, the written word, especially in your, like a Shakespeare in your native language, the Bible itself, these old stories. But what I'm trying to get to is that Father Peter Bowes taught the Poem of the Man God, the Bible, and a lot of the parables and the hidden deeper meanings of these texts for years. I saw him do it. He was steeped in this material deeper than anyone I knew. I still know, probably more than 99% of this book. So this forms, what I'm trying to say here is that if you read the original book, it's many thousands of pages. It's excellent. If you listen to the audiobook, you're getting it from a true Christian master, a great teacher, a person who has studied this for decades and taught it to thousands and thousands of people. And I think that this is a good time to talk about this just a little bit, and then we'll jump into the text itself here. But call this an introduction to the Cosmic GED AI Book Club. And you think about all the hours of contact that I've had with this book. Reading it took me about 4 or 5 years to get through the whole thing, plus the ancillary books that go with it. And when you're in contact with a piece of art for that long a period of time, it comes into your dreams. It influences so much of your life. And so what you're going to get here is probably like 20 minutes or less of a condensation of the Poem of the Man God. But this would be the perfect example of how there is a universe of experience on the other side of this text that can be directly achieved. And I would say that the heart of that experience is contact with Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ was a living human who fulfilled his divine mission to transmute the weight of the human race to the point where people who had great weight, sinners, people are, if you like that word or don't like that word, people with weight on their souls towards their self-realization, their self-knowledge that they are the God self. I would say that's a pretty radical idea. That comes from my teacher, Paramahansa Yogananda, who, when I was a student of Father Peter Bowes, that was one of his teacher's teachers. And he taught the direct experience of the kingdom of God within. And that, I think, is ultimately the most, quote, hidden teaching of Jesus. He said it openly. He also said that you're going to say these things and children are going to get them, but like the high and the powerful are not. He said so many other things. And in 1943 or 42, in this area, right around World War II and before, Jesus appeared as a spirit and as a physical manifestation in the room of Maria Valtorta. You can find pictures of her room. That might be, I was thinking about some images I could throw under this audio. Trying to keep my production slim here so we can keep up with the AIs. But I've got some images that a friend took of her bedroom and where she wrote the poem of the Man God, and I'll throw those on the video right now so you can see those. And Jesus appeared to her. She went through a number of sacrifices and sufferings, Maria Valtorta, to become a third order Franciscan nun that was bedridden through a medical experience she had of essentially getting assaulted on the street. Some thugs broke her back and she couldn't leave her bed. Jesus would appear to her and would tell her stories and would also give her these fantastic, multidimensional, super colorful, very sensory-rich visions, which she would dutifully record. And that's what we have in the poem of the Man God. I grew up a Catholic, and this has been blessed by John Paul II, I think, included this as an inspirational work. So Catholics who worry about this kind of thing, this is an official book called by Pope John Paul II, the poem of the Man God. I believe I'm getting that right. The author of this book, the person who dictated it and gave the visions, Jesus himself, to Maria Valtorta, called it the Gospel of Jesus Christ. And for anyone with ears to hear, that's what you should hear. This is the gospel that Jesus brought into the world and refined through this exquisite instrument he had in Maria Valtorta, who he called his little pen. You can see pictures of the pens that she actually used to write the poem of the Man God, probably under this video right now. And you don't have to take my word or anybody's word for it. If you read it, or if you listen to Father Peter Bowes read it to you, which he's great at, I'd say the world's best at, easily, what you will experience is a transmission of love and light and intimacy. And that's kind of the main criticism. Over the years, I've looked at the criticisms of the church and other Catholics and things like this. I just want to say I'm a lapsed Catholic, not a good practicing one. Just keep my grandma from rolling over in her grave. But what I'm saying here is that the main criticism I see is that from these bishops and these popes and these high people is in the church is that it's too emotional, that it's just kind of embarrassing that she would have this kind of gushing love feeling for Jesus. And it's just a lot and wonderful. And when you can clearly tell this person loves Jesus a lot. And of course, that's why you push your saints and your mystics out to the edge of your village and make them live in caves so they can go crazy with God out there and not like destroy your social fabric. Because that's what a mystic and a saint does, is they're in contact with the source so powerfully and so directly that the words they speak and the energy they put out and the insights they have and like what they want to tell you about you, if you know them, this all becomes from another world, the world where God is real. And I've always thought that's the best definition of heaven, is the place where everyone knows God is real. You can be in that place in a group of people where everybody is certain that God is real. When everyone's you're around is certain that God is real, that allows a kind of morphogenic field of clarity to evolve, and the moment-to-moment contact that each person makes with the source, God, however you want to describe it, feeds that field. And that's what you get: a cloister. That's where you get a church, a monastery, holy people getting together and experiencing God together. And that is the environment that I experienced the Gospel of Jesus, also known as the poem of the man God. And the main experience you can get from this entire thing is direct contact with Jesus. I would say that in the way that you can reach through a book and touch a character, in the way you can reach through a movie and touch an actor, the way that you can reach into a story and touch some mythical truth, how that function within you, I think you're going to be surprised if you take it seriously and you sit down and read the book, the full thing. I'm not saying everyone will be called to do that. You should wait till you're called to do it. It's quite the chore if you're not called to it. It's quite the joy if you are. But at the other end of this artistic artifact, the poem of the man God, is Jesus Christ. The most full, rich 3D version you're ever going to get without direct spiritual revelation yourself. And that experiencing this book would cause direct spiritual revelation, I would just give you as like a given, because you can't be this close to this man, his mother, his father, his grandparents, his disciples, his just the whole process of the crucifixion. You can't go through it and not be changed. It's one of those books in life that if you read it, you will not be the same person at the other side of it as you are at the first side of it. And it's just that heavy and powerful a text, which makes it kind of a wild experiment to feed it into an AI and ask it questions about it. In this case, the first episode you're going to get right after my voice here is the full version of just hot off the press from the Notebook LM Pro model. The Pro model came out about a week and a half ago. And the Pro model has a higher context window, so can consider the entire text. And this is an unprompted podcast that it generates. This is kind of a nice thing because what it does is it reads the text. It looks at all the major themes. It has some meta programming that creates structure in its conversation, and then it fills it in. So think of the conversation as a cookie cutter, and think of the batter as the poem of the man God. And we're getting some nice, frothy, thick, pancakey-like batter, and we're going to pour it into this mold, and you're going to get a 20-minute snapshot of it. But what I was remarkably impressed by was that in that 20 minutes, the AI model concludes that the most important thing that can come from this would be a contact with Jesus. And I find that I've heard people defend the poem of the man God over the years. I find that this AI does an insanely fair job of putting it in context. It's not like letting itself become like a fervent believer through the text. But I think that is which is probably what would happen to someone who actually read it. But I mean, read it and had a human heart, a human soul, because it answers so many of the questions about the human soul. The crisp description of Jesus's mission. I gave a little tip earlier for people who like to teach with the Bible. You can basically go in the Bible and find a paragraph, get your concordance out, find the place in the poem of the man God. And in the poem of the man God, you will get not only that event, which won't be a paragraph, it'll be like 3 or 4 pages, but you'll get the social context before, in the weeks leading up to, and after the week when the teachings were done. So over and over again, in the poem of the man God, you are on an adventure. Like Bilbo Baggins is like a poor, the Lord of the Rings, that whole clash with evil. It's a poor approximation for the actual story of Jesus, which is the mission of Jesus, when fully told, is just the hero's journey of the hero's journeys. You're good luck finding a better one described in English that is the same length as like Homer writing the Odyssey, or think about just the bards of past and how they would hold these phenomenal tomes of knowledge in their words and in their verbal, auditory, oral memory, and then regurgitate it, hit play, like they were human MP3 players, essentially. This is as close as you're ever going to get to something in the Western culture that can hit you at the core of where your root to the subconscious is said another way. I remember years ago I heard the Dalai Lama describe, somebody came to him and said, "Hey, which, Tibetan gods should I get into? And he's like, you should totally focus on Jesus and Mary and the stories that are told by the people you were born from. And there's such wisdom in this. Think of DNA, this is just a Reverend Paulism here, but think of DNA as like a little antenna that also has some information in it that kind of tunes the antenna. But most of the information that DNA uses is like in the field, the magnetics of the earth, call it, or maybe there's a universal field or hologram or something it draws from. But what Rupert Sheldrake was describing as the morphogenic field where shape is stored. So the shape of your DNA, the resonance of your DNA, the people around you, what will your lens of the unconscious look like? The people who you come from and how they thought and believed. And so if you want to get right to it, according to the Dalai Lama, go to that source through the lens that you have. And in the West, that's Jesus, that's Mary, that's Christianity. For anyone who's serious about wanting to understand that story as the author would tell you it, though in my experience, my direct experience, I can tell you from every corner of my soul, in terms of my integrity, that this is Jesus giving Maria Valtorta this vision, and she recorded it, and it can inspire the search for God, for truth, for wholeness in a way that you're probably not going to find in any other experience. And I say that not to denigrate all authors other than this one, but simply to say that the transformative mission of Jesus Christ and its impact on the world, the grace that it opened for all those that came after, the seekers of truth, the true seekers of truth, will see in this work a truth, something that will not really be said in any other way, I would guess. If I was guessing on it, no one's asked me to guess. I would say that, if you put your target over this one and you're like, hey, I'd like to know Jesus. There's lots of ways to know Jesus, but this is one of them. And this is a powerful way. It's self-study. And you're going to get 20 minutes of AI compressing it down. I think what I'm going to do is after this first compression, I'm going to roll out a couple more of these. And that's why I've included in the text description of this video a recipe card. The recipe card tells you the model. Based on the timestamp, you can see that this was done in January of 2025. So it'll tell you the model, it'll tell you the prompt, and it'll also tell you the level of knowledge that the chef had. I'm the chef in this model, but this is kind of a good footnoting practice when you're working with AIs, because the AIs are very, very smart. And what's so cool about this AI is that it limits itself to this knowledge base. But the Gemini Pro 2 Pro model that this Notebook LM is now based on is brand new, and it also brings in information from outside, which I've heard this thing being spitting out podcasts for a couple months now, and I can tell you that this is a super nice improvement, because you're getting the ability for this AI point of view to stay somewhat neutral and express the contents of the book is nothing short of revolutionary. This is a very passionate subject: the soul, Jesus, God, Mary, the history, Catholic Church, all of it. Just so give me a more controversial set of topics. I find this is a quite graceful little through line through it here. And I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to curate a couple of other dives into it. The piece I wanted to bring your attention to at the end here, and then I'll get on with this, is the cook temperature, the TCT. And I just invented this as a way of trying to relate to you that as I'm making the dozens and hundreds of little micro decisions that I make as I take the original text and excerpt sections of it and feed those to the LM and within its context window, and I choose its knowledge base of sources, and then I choose the prompting. I want you there with me, dear listener. I want you individually to be there with me. I want you to know what I knew going into it, because I find that one of the most beautiful and interesting parts of this art form, using an AI to essentially scrape human knowledge and compress it, is that it actually can do the job. It's not perfect. You're not going to get the 5,000 plus pages of Maria Valtorta in this 20 minutes. You're not probably going to get that direct connection to Jesus that you're going to get in the first 300, 400 pages of the first book as you go through it and as you be where Maria Valtorta was when she wrote this. And also Jesus edited it with her afterwards, said, move this section here, move that there. So not only did he write it through her, he edited it through her. And it's quite remarkable. These are quite remarkable claims, obviously. Just claims, right? But here's the cool thing about life. People live it. And when people live it, they form opinions. I've lived this book a lot, more than any other book in my life, easily by a factor of 3 or 5. And this book is, I can tell you that the language model, did a really good job. Personally, I am looking forward to successive deep dives where I get to guide it to specific stories or instances, and then have it pull back information from other parts of the story that relate to that. My teacher, Father Peter Bose, might say this is an overly intellectual approach to it, young Paul. But I need to be right. That's correct. It is literally just encountering the text of the physical text itself. You can get the heart, which is the real purpose and mission of Jesus, was to transform all of our hearts. That level of transformation is available through a careful reading, maybe a listening to the audiobook through Audible. Father Peter Bose wrote his autobiography, The Way, the Truth, and the Life, an autobiography of a Christian master, years ago. And I helped him record and edit his first audiobook. That was his first audiobook. So it's remarkable to see him now putting the poem of the man God into animated, holographic, heart-based, love-based, motion-based reality. It's truly a story that should be experienced like that. You might not have the dozens and dozens of hours necessary to do so. So enjoy the 20 minutes, find yourself a concordance, grab a copy of the poem of the man God. You can get it from the official publisher. I think it's on the Internet Archive as well. And you can just do this one little experiment. Whatever verse or anything you found in the Bible that you had questions about or were curious about or just liked, or just was like, that seemed like there was something there, but it's like a line and a half, so I never really got the answer. Go to the concordance for the poem of the man God, find where that is referenced back to find where your gospel reference comes back to the poem of the man God, read that section, read before, read after it, and just see what happens. I think what you'll find is that in almost every case, you're going to get this insane 3D Technicolor VR experience of that thing. And here's the real magic of the poem of the man God. It doesn't change the gospel. I didn't find anything really in the poem of the man God that was like, it's totally different than the gospel. It's just like it literally takes the gospel as like a black and white outline pencil drawing and turns it into a 3D multi-sniff movie where you can like smell the roses as you walk through the Garden of Gethsemane with Jesus on his last night on earth. It's not roses, but the the olive trees and I have so many sensory experiences with Jesus in the garden, walking towards Golgotha, being on the cross. It is described in exquisite and excruciating detail. And I'll just put this little Easter egg at the end and then I'll shut up. If you ever wondered what God's response to the crucifixion was, it's like a big question mark for me. Even as like a kid in Catholic school, I was like, okay. So like someone's son gets killed and where's the fucking fire? Where's the wrath, dude? Like, give me a break. I've read parts of the Old Testament. I know what this God does. This omnipotent God inside of everything. I know what it's capable of. It's written down, dude. I wasn't even like, no one even had a gun to my head to believe this stuff. I was just like, that just makes sense to me. And so if you, the Easter egg, you read the poem of the man God, when you, that moment, that last moment that Jesus' consciousness is a man, and then it's released from his body, and he goes through the transformation that ultimately results in his resurrection and standing amongst the disciples. If you've ever had trouble with your faith in terms of the resurrection, wait till you read 600 pages of him talking to his apostles. Like you know how Thomas had to like put his hand in Jesus to be like, a lot of us are like that. A lot of us are like, dude, just let me like put my hand in your wound. This is that. This is putting your hand in Jesus's wound. And it is untrammeled. Anyway, Easter egg. Dude, there's this black storm that comes out of the horizon. Everybody on site at Golgotha knows they fucked up. Everyone is truly, the veil has been lifted. Apocalypse means the lifting of the veil. The cyclone, the final curtain on a theater is at the very end of the theater, and it separates the performance place from the wall of the theater itself. It's called the cyclone. It's this big ass curtain. It's usually just a steady color in most cases, but it's the last thing that you would see rather than seeing the wall of the building you're in. The final illusion, the raising of the final illusion, the apocalypse, comes upon not only the people on Golgotha, but the entire town of Jerusalem. And I'll just spoiler alert it for you. Skeletons get out of the ground and accuse the rabbis who were nonsense with this whole process. There's some justice. If everyone's looking for like, where's like the justice chapter of the New Testament, it's in Maria Valtorta's poem of the man God. Read the crucifixion. The religious order I was in every year during Good Friday would read, leading up to Good Friday, would read all of the approaching lessons of Golgotha. And then on Good Friday would actually read and go through the crucifixion at noon. And we would synchronize this between all of our centers. And it was quite possibly, I think, one of the greatest group contributions that all of the ministers and the students of this order made, which was called the Order of Christ Sophia, made to the world, which is a morphogenic resonant imprint of what it's like to be with Jesus as you read the poem of the man God. And I'm sure we're just some of the first, and I'm sure there will be generations of people that do this. This will be the most epic movie at some point when AI becomes like totally sentient and be like, dude, make the poem of the man God, but like spare no detail. Like that'll cost like $1 kajillion. Like, do it. Like figure out the cost of a small country to like burn the electrons to generate it. Reminds me of the scene in Devs where they try to use the AI to go back and be with Jesus on the cross. It's the same thing what I'm talking about here with using AI to reverse it. But in any event, you can actually, through literary magic and through a bedridden woman saint, Maria Valtorta, in the 1940s, while the bombs are going off in World War II, you can go back and be there and you can see what happened through Maria Valtorta's eyes as it was shown to her. And that's really all it is. This is a saint and a mystic who is expressing a holy vision that was given to her, and the detail and the richness of it will change you just in itself with no chaser. So I think I'm going to make this, because it's so long, I'm going to make this an introduction to our cosmic GED. When I was a college professor, I mostly taught the science aspect of the 4 areas of the GED, but I also taught the reading part, and I also taught the mathematics part of the GED. And so science and reading, math, science, and reading. And there was a social studies component that I was pretty good at too. Didn't get a chance to do as much of that as I wanted to. So anyway, when I stopped teaching for others and I started to kind of teach out of my garage, I always wanted a GED, but it wasn't going to be a normal GED. It was a cosmic GED. Why a cosmic GED? A cosmic GED because every time I taught science, the history of science, from the Big Bang to like the sophistication of human biology running around making thinking machines, that whole arc, I would teach that as the science component of the GED, and I had so much fun. It was overkill. It was more than like strictly the test needed. My students pointed that out continuously, like, dude, I don't even know about this. And I was like, but you totally do. But some students would come along with me from the beginning of the universe to our moment now, and just how vast an area that is. You just sort of do a little bit on that timeline, and it sort of gives you the ruler that you might hold up to the universe to be like, well, that's biology. That's where it fits in the bigger thing. That's mathematics. That's where it was discovered. That's how it fits in, just the whole thing. Every single time that I would introduce the ruler that I had put together with the help of the school that I was teaching at, they had a kind of a basic framework, and I enhanced that. Every time I did that, the cosmic would come up. The students would want to talk about their inner spiritual concerns and revelations, I would say. And as a minister, as a priest for years, I knew exactly what they were saying. They were essentially talking about the mechanics of their soul and about how things work. If you've ever hung out with stoners on a late Saturday night or a Sunday night and everybody's a little ripped and they're talking about the way the universe works under a starry sky, this is the tone. It's driven by pure curiosity, awe, and wonder. And so I always wanted the cosmic GED, where you learn all the basics of the GED that you would need to get a degree. Your GED degree in the United States of America basically is a high school equivalency test created for veterans who were coming home from the war, who had missed out on those years of their life, but they had clearly mastered a depth of life that isn't even on offer to most citizens of a country, and that's serving to the point of potential death in war, in a conflict. It's the ultimate sacrifice you can make, just like Jesus on the cross. Bring it all together. I was never able to really teach a student how things worked, the way that science understood them. When students would come to my class, I would teach computer science, and I'd be like, someone tell me how the internet works. And they'd just be like, it's magic. And I was like, this is a kind of magic that you can actually map out and understand the recipe, the spell, whatever you want to call it. You can understand the recipe and you could create it again if you just knew the recipe. And that's not magic, that's technology. And technology is essentially magic that's been caught, like the spark that's been caught. And the more we catch the spark, the more we know how to heat our food, how to raise our kids, how to teach them. And I'm a teacher, and this whole podcast, the Cosmic GED AI Book Club, and I'm going to put in some regular book club in here too, because I got a lot of things I want to put in here. But this is, you can see the temperature of the chef as I've gone through here. You need to know my state of mind and my level of interest and my level of knowledge for these things as I build these podcasts. At least I think I want to know that. When I listen to other people who do this, I want to know those details. I'm trying to give you all of that. I give you the model. I'm giving you the prompt. I'm giving you the level, the temperature, the level of knowledge that I have. So when I have a high level of knowledge and I've read the original sources and I've experienced them and thought about them and studied them and taught other people aspects of them, parts of them, I can tell you with authority that this gets it. There's nothing in here I wouldn't show you. I'm not going to show you something that is inaccurate, a hallucination, or just an AI tripping over itself. It is remarkable how this particular pass through, this first one, it's remarkable how well it keeps to the arc of the core teachings of Jesus and the Christianity. And it is remarkable that the insight that it comes away from is that Jesus is real. No, well, not say Jesus is real, because that's probably not the way to say it. It's to say that the contact with the real living Jesus is possible through the text. It says that. It gleans that. I can't honestly remember if I read that or learned that or was taught that, or I don't know how it got into my neural model, but I know how it got into this neural model. And it got into this neural model because I gave it this text. And it's very interesting that core truth can be extracted by what is essentially a set of mathematical formulas. It probably says something like this. Our language is kind of like a recipe or a spell in itself. When we say apple, we don't just say apple. There's something in apple that is there. This entire mathematical model, we have trained it from the outside in. Think about if you're this model. Just as I know it's not sentient yet, or conscious, or doesn't have deep reasoning. Not yet. Probably soon. But this thing only knows us through our language. Literally, humanity to it is our language. And what these requests are that we make of it are, okay, here's our whole language, all of it, as much language as we can give you. Here's some more language, a smaller piece. How does this language relate to the other language? And what I think is happening here is that language itself has meaning hanging off the words that this computer doesn't understand, but can remix. It can listen, like a computer can listen to a song and tell you every note and exactly where it is on the scale. So if you only want to hear the C notes, you can hear the C notes. And that's kind of I think one of the most beneficial ways to think about it is it's like, think of the poem of the man God as a song, and it listens to the song and it gives you the main refrains and the words that were said in there, in those chorus and refrain segments. It's like a short thing. It doesn't take you years to experience. But with this power, because you are remixing the actual, pardon me on all these bumps here, because you are remixing the actual power of the knowledge behind the words, it's actually in there. So you will get something from this 20 minutes that actually comes from the original text, that actually comes through a woman named Maria Valtorta from Jesus, who comes to us from God through a woman named Mary and a father named Joseph. And if you haven't ever met Jesus' grandparents, they're real sweethearts. You're going to love it. It starts with that. Everyone, blessings. Welcome to the Cosmic GED. This is all cosmic focused. I promise I'll get to the GED eventually. I have got some AI friends that are helping me write some basic GED knowledge, and quite frankly, it's the most interesting and fun stuff to teach. I've just taken a few years off to get a little cosmic. So here, enjoy what we have, and remember, this is an AI, so it's an intermediary. Look at the temperature, look at the prompts, think about what it is. Heck, play with the tool yourself. Go get an original copy of the material, feed it to the LM, ask it your own questions, investigate. It's never been easier to learn, and I am doing this mainly because it is fun to learn. So this is for learning, this is for fun. Everybody have a fantastic day, and God bless. Bye-bye.